Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's edition of Tech It Out with Vista. Today, we're going to be learning all about the new NOA mobility companion from Biped. And our guest today is Maël, and he is the co-founder and CEO of Biped, the manufacturer of NOA. Welcome, Maël. How are you?
Hey, I'm very good. How about you?
I'm doing well, thank you. We appreciate you joining us. Um, so, could you tell us a little bit about the NOA mobility companion and how it came about?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's NOA is a device that kind of originated about 3 years ago. Um, at the time, we are a Swiss company. So I'm currently on my holidays in France, but I live in Switzerland. And in Switzerland, we have an ophthalmic hospital in Lausanne, so on the French-speaking side of Switzerland. And about 3 years to 3 years and a half ago, I met someone who was using a white cane heading to the ophthalmic hospital, but he was also doing a FaceTime call to a friend. And that's the moment I realized that the person on FaceTime was actually giving him a couple of useful navigation information. So close obstacles. So you've got traffic sign to your right, just keep your distance, or there are stairs to your left, but also lateral obstacles, such as there is an incoming electric scooter, or there is an incoming car to your right. GPS kind of last mile precisions that were being provided also. So the crosswalk is slightly to your right at about 10 feet. All right, light is green, you can get going. And finally, like specific object finding, like this is where you'll find the front, like a reception desk, for example, or this is where the door is located. And this person that I met basically gave me the contact of the head of innovation at the ophthalmic hospital, and I quickly realized that anything that had been tried in terms of mobility was really centered around ultrasound sensors or laser sensors, but rarely around cameras and AI. And this is where my background was. So I was doing a PhD in speech processing, and before that, I studied computer vision and applied AI at EPFL in Lausanne. So it just felt like a kind of a natural fit to say, can we actually use cameras and AI to try to target mobility, but as an all-in-one solution, something that could detect close and lateral obstacles, something that could give navigation instructions, and something that could help using AI look for specific things in the scene. And that kind of set the scene for what became NOA. So NOA stands for Navigation, Obstacle, and AI. We didn't bother too much finding a like a more marketing ready name. It's just like felt natural to call it NOA. NOA also means movement in Hebrew. So that was something we found out later about, but it just adds a nice touch to the story. And for NOA, it's basically, you can picture it as a small vest or a small harness that is worn on the shoulders. You just kind of slide it around your shoulders. It's got one camera module that goes on the left-hand side, one small AI computer that goes on the right-hand side, and one battery that goes behind the neck. The parts that go on your shoulders are flexible straps. They can be, it's like bendable kind of a structure that has a bit of a metal insert in it, so it keeps the shape you give it. The camera modules have 170 degrees of field of view, so it's super wide cameras that have day and night vision with an infrared sensor also built in. And they're more like namely depth cameras, so they can also have distance perception. So whenever there is an incoming obstacle, for example, we know where the obstacle is located and if there is a risk of collision based on the trajectory of the obstacle specifically. On the right-hand side, it's the small AI computer that has buttons on the side. The buttons allow you individually to control the navigation, the obstacle, and the AI features without having to take your smartphone out, and the battery you can basically swap. So it's located behind the neck, and so whenever you want to change the battery, you remove the device, take it out, and insert a new battery. And basically, the main experience that you can get while wearing the device is you're wearing headphones with it. So those could be bone conduction headphones, Meta glasses, Bose frames, whichever Bluetooth system that you want to use. And it's basically going to speak to you. So tell you about your navigation instructions. So that's a clockwise navigation system. So it would tell you continue straight, and then in 30 feet, turn right at 2 o'clock. It's got crosswalks information built in, so it would tell you when to cross the street, for example. And that's where the cameras will come in super handy, because if you want to go for the AI options, basically with the AI, you can either ask for like a generic scene description, so that's doing a bit like Envision style, full scene description of your surroundings. But you can also look specifically for a class of objects. So you could look for a crosswalk. That's one of the classes of objects. And when you click on it, the same voice that just guided you and told you cross the street and turn left, you go through the menu, you trigger the crosswalk finding, and then it's going to tell you where the crosswalk is located, what distance, and how long the crosswalk is to get to the other side of the street. And does so within a couple of seconds to get the feedback. And yeah, so you've got the navigation, you've got the AI feature. And for the obstacle avoidance, we actually went with something that is very simple, because we landed quite early on a partnership with the research institute from Honda, and Honda has been working quite a lot on collision avoidance for their parking assists. And so the experience is just very similar to parking a car. So you just hear beep, 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 beep as an obstacle is coming closer. You can hear it from the left, from the right, with a 3D sound balance. You've got a high pitch for head level, low pitch for ground level, and it can also pick up holes and drop-offs, or any kind of significant change of level can be picked up. And it's got about 3 hours of battery time, controlled via smartphone application. But as mentioned, we added just a bunch of controls on the side of it so that there is as little interaction needed as possible to have to get your smartphone out. Kind of in a nutshell, what it does and the experience that you would be getting. And I think more specifically, if you really want to picture this, if you're walking on a sidewalk, you've got your GPS destination set, say like 1 mile away, and it's like continue straight, and then you got to make a right turn at some point. The vast majority of the time, the device would remain completely silent, so it would not generate any sound unless there is a close obstacle, so something that has a risk of collision. In that case, you would just hear beep, 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 with a sound indicating where the danger is. And you can go around the obstacle by just rotating your shoulders. So if you hear like that there is the sound on the right, you rotate your shoulders to the left, no sound. It means the path is free on the left. Then your GPS system built in would tell you cross the street and turn right. And whenever you approach the crosswalk, you trigger a crosswalk finding via our AI system. And then the voice that just told you to cross the street and turn right would just tell you the crosswalk is at slightly to your right at 1 o'clock at about 15 feet and is about 30 feet long. So it's kind of the experience you can picture while using the device.
Great. Maël, can I ask a question? How far out in front are the sensors looking for, like if you're going to have a pothole or a set of stairs, something like that? How much of a warning is that going to give you?
So it's the physical limitations of the hardware are set about 50 feet. It's kind of the max depth perception that we have access to. That being said, if the AI is going to describe something, it's going to do it out of the image that the cameras are capturing. So in practice, it can describe things that are happening at 150 feet without any major issue. I mean, basically what we did with this 170 degrees of field of view is at the same time both a very interesting point, because we can actually, you don't have to point at something, you don't have to be facing the thing you want to get a description for. So you could be, you know, slightly off when you want to find an exit door, for example. So we have like exit door finding. You don't have to be facing the door for it to get a description, but at the same time, it means that we need to be able to filter really massively what matters in the scene. Otherwise, you get something that is completely overwhelming, which is most of the feedback that we collected while we started to co-design this system in the first place. Is the bigger the field of view, the more massive the problem of overwhelming feedback is going to be. And the way we tackled this in the end was, first, we give a lot of controls over the device. I mean, on the side of the device, so you can just specify your intent at a specific moment. We don't assume that we want to look for crosswalks automatically for you if you don't want to, for example. But the second thing is, we, for all things related to obstacles, we basically track the obstacles that are on the user's trajectory. And that's where the key partnership with Honda really kicked in, because Honda has got a great team dedicated to pedestrian collision avoidance that specializes in predicting cars, electric scooters, bicycles, and pedestrian trajectories, and informing cars about that piece of information so that cars can take the best and or like safest decision. And we basically took that model and we brought it at the pedestrian level, so that we know that if you're following someone and that person in front of you is actually going a bit faster than you, then there is no risk of collision. And so then we should mute that person and not generate a kind of a sound for the person you're following on a sidewalk.
And does your AI system, when you're standing at a crosswalk, does it detect the pedestrian crossing signal and give you any feedback, kind of like the OCO app does? Do you have any integration of that in your AI system?
It's definitely a direction we're going to take. It doesn't do it for now. So for now, it's basically describing where the crosswalk is, and we didn't dive into the aspect of guiding. I think that the two aspects, like the two directions we see taking, is first guiding on the specific path of the crosswalk, and then second is detecting the color of the traffic light. So that is still like in development, I would say. That's active R&D.
Okay, great. Where can people acquire the NOA device? Where do you have that available?
So we currently retail it mostly on our website. We've got one of our colleagues is just right now, as I was just out of a Zoom call with him, because he's currently in a van in the US, and he's doing the like kind of US rollout for us. So he's been attending a couple of key events, AER, CSUN, and just making sure that we kind of dispatch as many units as possible for people to be able to try it. But it's mostly on our website for now. It's called Biped. So it's biped.ai. So biped.ai. That's where our website is.
Well, if your coworker in the van makes it to the San Francisco Bay Area, if you could give us a heads up about that, we could certainly get that information out to our group and let people know that you're nearby.
Yeah, absolutely. So he's mostly on the East Coast now, but we are going to do, in the second phase of the year, we're going to do a West Coast rollout also. And yeah, he's basically going to go from San Diego all the way up to Seattle, and probably stopping in a couple of key places along the way.
Sounds great. Can you tell us how much the NOA device costs?
Yeah, so for the US market, we're basically doing the rollout at about 4,250 euros, which I believe, based on the exchange rate, it's kind of the range of usually 4,600 USD. The main points that we usually want to make with the aspect of like mobility solutions, like the one we're building, is that I think there is a unique potential being on the market right now to have both an obstacle detector system, a GPS system, and a pair of AI smart glasses or whichever AI wearable bundled into a single smarter solution. So that's kind of the direction we're taking. The hardware production costs are still very high as we speak. We definitely have a vision where we want to democratize as much as possible the access to such solutions because we are aware that the price point is usually quite steep. But yeah, it's the rationale being that we think there is a chance, and we're seeing in practice for the first users who are adopting the solution, that it becomes a single solution instead of 3 different devices.
Sure. And how much does the and I don't, like you, I don't know whether to call it a harness or a vest. How much does that weigh?
Yeah, so we're about 1.1 kilogram, which I think would be just a little more than 2 pounds. Once wearing on the shoulders, it's definitely something that feels very light. It's the number one comment we get is it looks, or it kind of initially feels a lot bulkier than like a lot heavier than once you actually start wearing it. So that's usually a positive surprise, is because the shoulders are such a great way. Like, I'm not a fan of like head worn stuff because it's so weight sensitive somehow that, even if you try a Vision Pro, for example, it's a great piece of technology, but the fact that it's just slightly too heavy makes it, for me, like when I run a test, like just uncomfortable enough that I wouldn't use that regularly. The shoulders are just like a great way to like distribute quite a bit of weight. If anyone's a backpack user or whatever, you always have a couple of pounds on your shoulders.
That ties into my next question for you. So could you describe a little bit more about the harness? Is the material on them, are they similar to like backpack straps, or what is the covering material on the harness?
Yeah, so we've got 3 sets of materials. The first one is the kind of a rubber padding. So the rubber straps, it's basically a kind of semi-rigid structure where we have a metal insert inside of a kind of a bendable rubber strap. Those are going to go around your shoulders because we just want them to be wide enough not to be on your collarbone, but somehow like not too tight, because you don't want that to be right around your neck. So it sits really just out of your at the outer edge of your collarbone, for example. And then you have, so that structure is a fully black rubber strap. Then we have most of the material on the device is a high quality plastic. It's black. It's got a couple of buttons that you can feel also on the sides of the module that sits on the right hand side of your chest. You've got 2 ways to touch the buttons. It's either with your right hand and you touch the buttons with your thumb, or you are like a white cane user with your right hand, for example, and then you take your left hand and you just reach across your chest by placing your left hand on the right side of your chest, and then you have quite naturally just the 3 fingers starting with your index at the top that allow you to reach out to the 3 rows of button. But one aspect that is quite cool is on the left hand side, we have one more material. There's the protective glass cover on top of the cameras, and the glass cover is tinted. So that was one of the feedback that we got at some point, is if it looks too much like it is a camera, it will attract attention, and that's not something we want, of course. We just want it to be the next normal somehow, and we just want that device that's why it's all black. It's also going to come in as in a light gray version end of summer. But it's just the aspect of having it fully black with tinted glass cover that is itself like water and droplet resistant, just made it feel a lot more natural. And if you're a couple of feet away from someone and the person is wearing the device, it's slim enough that it doesn't look a lot more different from, someone wearing a backpack and having, black straps that go around the shoulders.
How long of a battery life do you have?
We're looking at about 3 hours of continuous walking time, which in practice is enough for like a full day or a bit more, maybe. But yeah, roughly 3 hours. And it's a swappable battery. So you can basically remove the battery, and there's a second battery provided, and you can just slide it in, and the device restarts in about 10 to 15 seconds.
And how do you charge the batteries?
We provide a charger that has a magnetic base, so it's the same thing as the MagSafe charger, and basically, so you just you've got the base that is itself connected to like a USB-A cable, and we provide also the wall plug, and you basically just insert the battery inside of the base.
Speaking of that, could you tell us like what would we get in the box?
So in the box, you have one device that is fully flattened out for transport. So that one sits in the middle. You have a small charger, so the base of the charger plus a small wall plug. You have the two batteries that are also on the other side. So it's all coming in as like this big styrofoam that is pre-cut so that everything sits nicely inside. It can cross the Atlantic because all the units are handmade in Germany, so in the neighboring country. And it also comes with a printed user guide. So the user guide has also like a braille overlay to know where to scan for a QR code, where you get the accessible version of the onboarding material. And the onboarding material highlights, basically helps with the unboxing, highlights what is how to set it up, how to configure the device, how to run the first exercises. So we also included like a training template. We have a full explanation of the layout of the buttons and a quick exercises that we suggest on how to get familiar with that.
And then you had mentioned that you want it to be kind of a one-stop integrated navigational system, tying it together with some of the other, eyewear or things like that, or the bone conducting headphones. So do you envision that you'll have additional accessories in the future to complement the harness?
So what we started including in the boxes, also like we also started including first a cleaning kit for the cameras. We also started including a small strap. So the idea of the strap is purely like it's a Velcro strap that you can just tighten to keep the two parts of the device together in case you're scared that someone might, for example, be tempted to steal the device, because it's very easy to slide in. So it's very easy to kind of remove from your shoulders also. So there's a small Velcro strap that is added. Additionally, I think the form factor as such is going to remain frozen for the next couple of months or years, depending on the iteration cycle. What we might be doing at some point is just thinking about new ways these cameras can actually, so our company is named Biped Robotics, so kind of the fusion of how humans wear robotic hardware on them. And this aspect of like this vest is a first attempt at describing what we think the future of mobility could be, and it would definitely be other ways that we think the hardware will evolve and be convenient, or just offer alternatives somehow. So maybe in a backpack, maybe in an actual vest, or like in an actual jacket. This kind of stuff. It's really like we're not entirely fixed. It will be, as we did for this one, entirely driven by user feedback, and just see how we take it from there.
And how does the AI? I'm assuming it has to connect out to a system where it's able to grab all that data, or it's certainly not all on board, is it?
So it is So far is still connected to a server, but we are in the last few months where that is actually the case. Where the module that we have on the right-hand side of the chest actually has a small deep learning chip that allows us to run all of the AI for like scene description and speech generation. And we developed methods that run on prototypes as we speak and that are currently being trained that allow us in performance that are, I wouldn't dare to call it similar to like a GPT or whatsoever, because that would be the scope of what we're looking at solving is actually a lot more, like a lot narrower than what these large language or large vision models are trained for. But that would allow us to replicate the part that we're interested in with a very decent accuracy. So right now, what it requires is an internet hotspot sharing, same way a bit as Envision glasses or whatsoever, so that you can actually just access these large vision models, and we just focus on optimizing the time for these AI systems to get back to you. But where the core of our research and engineering effort lies is just getting these models to run entirely offline. That's going to be, of course, like a major milestone in bringing it closer to this value of saying it's an all-in-one solution.
And does the software periodically need to be updated, and do you push updates out to the vest?
Yes, absolutely. So we do over-the-air updates on average every 3 months, and then you just get like a notification that there is an update available, and just needs 5 to 7 minutes on a home Wi-Fi or like domestic Wi-Fi. You can also run it on the hotspot, and the device restarts afterwards.
And is there any app that is needed to go along with the NOA device?
There is an app. One is already on the App Store. It serves two purposes. The first one is that we can actually onboard users better. So if you want to go ahead and download the app to also give that a try, it's called Biped app. And with so it's BIPED APP. And with the Biped app, you basically first get to experience what the sounds are going to be like in practice, like in real life, once you start using the device. That's our kind of training template for everything that we could not just like write down, like, whenever we need to teach someone what a sound is going to be like or what types of instructions are being generated. This is controlled over that training system. And the other is to be able to control the settings of your device. So namely, if you want to change the height of the person who is using the device, we do basically head level obstacle that is filtered and adapted to the height of the user. So if there's two of you, for example, using the device, and one that's quite tall, the other a bit shorter, in that case, you just want to use the app to change that setting of the height of the person. But otherwise, the device is actually just independent from the app, so it doesn't need the app to start. If you want to enter a new GPS destination, that's going to be done just via the app also. But we try to keep the two systems as independent as possible for like a practical day-to-day use.
So it's not able to detect the distance of, say, the camera. I'm trying to pick a point on the vest. It's not able to detect the height of that off of the ground. You have to physically go into the app and tell it, I'm 6'2", and so then it knows where the camera height is.
It is temporarily. That's also one of the settings, because I don't want to always feel like the guy who's talking about the next features that are coming up. But it's we've got all the prototypes running for that. So the goal is, of course, that we get to the point where you don't have anything to set up anymore, and you just like give it to someone else. For example, we have a mode for wheelchair users. That's so far something where even in our prototype still requires like to declare I'm sitting in a wheelchair, and then you put on the vest, and it's basically going to just detect the frame of the wheelchair and see the repetitive pattern of the frame and then ignore it. But there are things where so far we haven't really put in the effort just because of the lack of time. For example, if you're a guide dog user, we have we have an algorithm that can detect guide dogs and can also learn to ignore the dogs in the frame. Otherwise, your dog might be picked up as an obstacle. But so far, just because these algorithms still have some margin of errors somehow, it just felt like it was a lot easier to just have a button on the app and say, I'm using a guide dog. And, that way we have 100% confidence. It adds like a step in the middle, but gradually over time, we'll just get, to the point where we remove most of the interactions with the app.
And there must also be an algorithm that takes out the cane, your mobility cane. So that's not pointing out as an obstacle to you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think even going a bit further on like the complementarity with the cane, one of the things we are experimenting with, but it's so far it's mostly work with mobility trainers, is a lot of obstacle detection systems that have been designed on the market kind of seek a full coverage of whatever is in front of the person, which can lead to overwhelming feedback as such, because the way you would assess if a like smart cane, for example, is working is, did it pick up something right before my cane touched it? Which is potentially great, but it's also potentially, if we put it in perspective, it might be something where you're like, if my cane picks it up on the ground, it's completely okay. I have my cane technique. I don't want to change this. But anything that my cane would pick up too late, or any upper body obstacle, could actually be a lot more relevant. And then, just framing maybe this white cane mode into something where we seek better complementarity with the cane is the ideas we're playing around with at the moment. So we so far give access to 3 controls. I'm not using anything. I'm using a white cane and I'm using a guide dog. And we just think there is probably like a smarter way to work with the white cane than basically just detecting the full range. If we're 100% sure that the white cane is actually going to pick up that obstacle just in a few seconds, for example. And namely like anything that is narrow on the ground or not even connected to the ground and just standing at a head level is very relevant, like a traffic sign or whatever. But if you're approaching a wall and it's just about detecting the wall, does it really make sense for an obstacle detector to actually just inform that there is a wall, but maybe at a distance that is a bit longer? I think that's probably something just to leave up to the preference of the user at the end of the day, and just give access to more controls so that anyone could specify that.
How would the device work if you were walking on a trail and there's trees along the edges of the trail or rocks along the edges, but not actually in the path? So it seems like you would need a much narrower range of field of view for detecting actual obstacles, roots or other rocks that could trip you up.
Yeah, absolutely. So the way that would work is we give access to a setting where you can change how narrow or wide you want the safety margins around you to be. By default, it's going to be about, let me just run the conversion. That would be about 5 inches on the side of, or 6 inches on the side of your shoulders. That's kind of the safety margin we would just take if you're walking on a sidewalk. You can change the setting for that, and you can more specifically say that, for example, you're a cane user and you just want to, you have got like high grass or whatever on the ground, and you just want to focus on detecting upper body obstacle quite narrowly with, like 2 inches on the side of your shoulders. That's a setting that exists where you can basically just define it as 2 inches on the side and upper body obstacle only. So that can be customized quite a bit. It comes with the downside that one needs to learn how to use these settings in the first place. So that's usually also why we recommend just doing the initial onboarding with a mobility trainer or with someone who's got basically low vision training expertise, who can just help explain a bit these settings.
And I should ask this question earlier. How long is the NOA device been in development? I know you had mentioned that, you'd observed somebody early on, and that kind of gave you the idea for this. But so how long has this whole project of yours been in the works?
Yeah, we basically created the company right after a hackathon that we did in January 2021. So that would be 3 years and a half ago, roughly. Throughout the entire 2021, it was a side hustle. So it was evenings and weekends. And yeah, and then in January 2022, we raised funds. I dropped out of my PhD. My co-founder quit his job and joined full time, and we hired our first employee. So yeah, 2 years and a half full time on this now.
Great. It sounds like it started out as a I don't know, like you say, kind of like a side hustle or a little project you're working on, and then realized the potential for it, and it took off from there.
I think it was purely based, out of ignorance in the first place, just thinking, oh, we're going to pull this through in a couple of weekends, and then we're going to have like a nice little working device, and had no clue how hard hardware actually is at the end of the day. So
and you were dealing with all of the supply shortages at the time.
yeah, COVID was great. Yeah, absolutely.
Alrighty, well, do you want to open it up for additional questions from the rest of our participants here?
Yeah.
Okay. So if anybody has any questions, please go ahead and raise your hands, and then Ryan can call on you.
Okay, Morgan, I see that you have your hand raised.
Hi. So thank you. First, I just want to say thank you so much for coming today and telling us all about Biped. My boyfriend and I were actually just looking at your website a couple weeks ago, and then I hear that you're coming on here, and I was really excited. So one of the biggest questions I have two really. So you'd mentioned height. I am very short, and so I was curious, for someone on the much shorter side, I'm about 4'11". Does the battery / top of the device, like where it situates on your shoulders, because you said it's about 6 inches. So if it's a smaller person, wouldn't it kind of hang off the shoulders, like not be able to sit very well? My second question is, if you need additional GPS apps or transit apps. For example, I use an app called Move It to take the public bus, and that's not a GPS app, but I'm wondering if you're running more than one thing, if it'll conflict with the system at all.
Yeah. So thank you very much for the question, and awesome that you heard about us before the presentation. So in terms of height, we definitely have users who are in a range of, sorry, I was just running the conversion at the same time to centimeters for me to be able to how tall 4'11" is. Yes, we definitely have users who are in this range of height. The form factor is, the cool thing is, since the straps are very flexible, you can basically just imagine that as something that, I don't know, if you're 4'11", but you have a backpack, for example, you can, quite just adapt it for you. And then the battery is going to kind of hang a bit lower towards the back, but it's still meant to be, like maybe around 2 inches down from your neck. And then it might be about 3 inches if you're shorter, but that's definitely not something we've had any bad experience with. On the GPS side, great point. One of the updates we're also bringing basically will allow your iPhone to generate the sounds directly, so that Apple can handle, just like you're getting a phone call and you want to put your NOA kind of streaming in the back automatically. That's Apple is going to handle this by having your iPhone basically generate all of the sounds, and that's going to be the best way for to have the complementarity with other GPS apps. So we don't want to force anyone to use our GPS app. We have like a I say pretty good GPS integration. But that being said, if someone's used to like another app, or the other app is doing something more, they need to be able to use that very well. The voice is going to sound a bit different because it's coming from two sources, so it's not something we can control. But you still be able to use your device and have another GPS app streaming to your phone.
Got it. And that's so, but you mentioned that's like coming, that's not available right now, the ability to have more than one thing running at a time.
Yeah, right now, it's a bit impractical, but what this would require right now is just having your iPhone on speaker and not using our GPS. Is just by default, you can ignore like the GPS part when you click on start walking with the device. But yeah, so that's just the thing where you have your iPhone that is streaming the instructions on speakers. It's not ideal, but we are.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, we're looking roughly at end of November for the release with the sounds coming from the iPhone.
I see. So right now, when you connect with the device, the way you don't pair it with your phone, then, right?
You do, but it doesn't send the audio instructions to your phone. The reason for that is we want it to focus on the system where the device actually streams the sounds to headphones first, without requiring the phone as a bridge. Then we added the phone so that you'd be able to change settings and set up your GPS destination whatsoever. And now we're working on streaming the sounds to the phone so that the phone can actually be used as a source of audio generation, which would open up in practice also just playing the sounds on the speaker of the phone if you're like in an open area or like on a hike or whatever and you don't want to wear headphones. That would also be possible at this time.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, I see Marcia, go ahead. Marcia, you're unmuted. I do see that you have your hand raised. All right, go ahead, Mickey. You're next.
Yes, I was just curious. So this is can you describe real quickly the unit again? It sounds like it's got a camera. And yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't get into the very beginning of the webinar. So if you could describe the unit real quick for me.
Yeah, absolutely. No worries. So it's kind of a harness or a vest where once you wear it, you have a set of cameras that are on your left-hand side. You've got 3 cameras that are in a small camera module. Basically, there's 3 cameras that have 170 degrees of field of view. Then you have rubber straps that go behind your neck, a small battery pack that goes behind your neck, and on the other side, another rubber strap and a AI computer that sits on the right-hand side of your chest. So it's kind of the form factor is not trivial to describe, but it's a module on the left-hand side of the chest, a module on the right-hand side of your chest, and straps that are linked by a camera, like a battery pack that is behind your neck, and it's about 2 pounds. It's all black, rubber straps and high-quality print plastic on the rest of the material. And the cameras themselves are tinted, so you can't see these are cameras. They're kind of hidden behind this tinted glass.
Okay, and do you have any kind of a demo of what it might sound like when you're walking down the street or walking in the house or wherever?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have 2 demos on our website. So that is biped.ai, so biped.ai. And we have 2 demos, one that is video with the audio that is generated, and the other one that is purely just to get introduced to a lot more of the sounds that the device generates. So it's an audio file that is also being played on the homepage.
Okay, and then the last question is, I'm sure you're looking at this, but if you had to pick another program that you'd want to integrate this with, would it be a Be My Eyes type app, or would it be a GPS app? Where do you feel the other app that you'd want to configure would add the most value?
So I think realistically what we have right now is, because we've got an obstacle detector, we've got a GPS navigation, and we've got a set of AI features or like descriptions. I think on the AI descriptions, they're pretty targeted and pretty good in terms of what you can expect as an output. And so I wouldn't be really looking at adding like another app during the use of that, but kind of resonates with the question that was asked before. I think some people, definitely what we're seeing in the user base right now is some people are just switching from from the GPS that we have and going for their own GPS because they're more used to something that, for example, relies on landscape or whichever. So just having the alternative GPS system being used, if you're a user of Blind Square, for example. Of course, like over time, we'll evolve and also offer partnerships with these apps, so that it's something that is as easy to configure as possible. But I think in the meantime, some people would still be using an alternative GPS app if they're really used to a specific system.
Okay, and that's BIPD.
So BIPED, biped.ai.
Okay, BI is the word next letter T or D?
So BI, so like so BIPED.
Okay, Bravo, India, Tango.
Yeah, so it's like
Eddie.
just like a bipedal.
Okay.
But it's so bipedal, but without the AL, and you do
Okay.
.ai.
Okay, great.
It's P as in Paul. So biped, P as in Paul.
Okay. Okay, good. I appreciate that. And it sounds real interesting. Last question is it mostly for indoor or outdoor use?
Mostly for outdoor use. We do have some people who use it indoor in medical facilities, for example, if they want to identify something that is blocking the hallway or whichever. But yeah, mostly outdoor.
Okay, because one real use that I would use it for, at least right now, is because I have a guide dog who just basically had to go in for surgery, and so he doesn't have one of his legs, and so he can't get out of my way very quickly. And so would this device, if I'm walking reasonably slow, would it pick up him laying on the floor?
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's definitely in the range of things that the device can detect, even at a pretty high velocity. So if you walk quite fast.
Okay, great. Thank you. Those are the questions I have for now.
Awesome. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Mickey. Farhang, go ahead. I see that you have your hand raised.
Thank you, Ryan. You can hear me?
Yes.
All right. Maël, thank you very much for this presentation. My first question was asked by Mickey. I have only one more question is, what is the price of this device?
So I just ran the conversion to US dollars because we are a European company, but we usually retail for $4,600.
Okay, all right. Okay.
All right, thank you.
No discount for the blind community? I know it is for the blind community. I know.
Yeah, so we do run special discounts around specific events, but we usually announce them on our newsletter on our website directly. And
Okay.
alternatively, we're also, that's we're trying to figure out the best way to do this, but we are also trying to work on a subscription system. So alternatively to having to buy the device, being able to rent the device on a monthly basis. But we'll share some news on our newsletter, because that is of course always the struggle of having to produce. If you have like 100 units to produce, it's great, but then you have to pay for 100 units to produce upfront, and as a startup it's not always the easiest, but we're trying to find ways to get it as affordable as possible over time.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Bob.
Thanks, Farhang. Rob, I see that you have your hand raised.
Yeah, I was just curious. I tuned in slightly late. You mentioned buttons on the device. I'm just curious how many buttons there are and what they do.
We actually do dive too much into this, so that's a great occasion to do it. So on the right outer edge of the module that is on the right hand side of your chest, you have 3 rows of 2 buttons. And the first row is where your index is, and the next finger is the second row, and the next finger is the third row. If you grab it with your left hand, so I'm kind of just like crossing my hands on my chest with my left hand, grabbing the right module, and then my fingers quite naturally line up with the position of the buttons. The first row is to control the navigation. So the navigation, you can basically just go through. You have 2 buttons. One of them is to go through the navigation favorite destinations. So you can have 5 favorite destinations, but you can do like 1, 2, and then with your thumb right across on the other side of the module, there is a select button. So I go through, for example, navigation 1, 2, and 3. So that tells me heading home, for example, and then I click with my thumb. I will click opposite side of that module. I would hear destination home selected, computing navigation path. Same way if you go with the middle finger in the middle, you would have a obstacle range. That is the setting that we give you access to. So you can change the range from, I have my references in meters, but the whole device is also supports imperials. But you would have like 1, 1.5, 2 meters, 3 meters, and then you can select. And then on the AI button, so that would be with the next finger, on the AI button, you can go through specific objects that you're looking for in the image. So far we support crosswalks, doors, exits, stairs, free seats that you might find in a frame, and text. So it can also read text specifically. And there is in the middle of the module on the right hand side, so kind of a middle, but at the bottom of that module, there's a big silver button, and that one is pretty easy to use. 1 click puts the device on pause, 1 click resumes it, and 2 clicks is where you get a full AI description. So it's a full scene description, and that one uses the whole field of view of the cameras and does left to right and close to far kind of detection range. So yeah, so that introduces the buttons on the side. We have the AI button and so we call it the main button, the one with the pause and pause. If you maintain a long press on that one, that also turns off the device. And we just added, just so whenever you have the module that you grab with your left hand on the right hand side of your chest, with where your thumb is, where we have this select button right below it, so that's on the left outer edge of the module, we have a forward and backward button. Forward is to skip an instruction that is being generated, say namely like a description of your surroundings is not relevant, or you don't want to have it anymore, and you just forward, so that mutes the device. Backward basically just replays an instruction that was just generated, and that you might have missed because the car passed by and it was super like noisy all of a sudden and you didn't hear everything. So that's a bit the layout of the buttons.
Well, thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Rob. Farhang, I see that you have your hand raised again.
Yes, thank you, Ryan. Will this device recognize how far a particular destination is, like a bus stop? Would it recognize the crossroads and the signals, if it's red or green or yellow?
So specifically for the traffic lights or like the crossroads, it doesn't describe the color because of the latency. So that's something the system is not really prompted for somehow, because it's going to describe where in space something is. But because it might take 3 to 5 seconds to actually generate the description and then to guide you to that place, by the time you get there, the lights might have turned red, and that's not just something that we are doing right now. We're working on something like this. But then if you have, for example, like a bus stop, you get you do a scene description, and then it would tell you that there is a bus stop at about 20 feet away, slightly to your left at this angle. That's the kind of description that you usually get from the AI system.
Mm-hmm. And when we are standing at the crossroad, we don't know that we are at the curb, but would it describe it that this is a crossroad and it's safe to cross, or that's not safe to cross?
So the crosswalk, if for example there's no like zebra crossing or something that is very standardized, you can trigger like the crosswalk finding via the buttons on the side, and specifically look for specifically look for the AI description would specifically give you a description of whether it finds a path or like a way for you to cross. And then what you can do, and this is where I was mentioning that we also like don't want to assume always the intent of the user, but what you can do is increase the range of obstacle detection to the maximum, which would be all the way to basically the maximum we give access to is about 15 feet. And what this does is basically it opens up like the full field of view of the cameras over 15 feet. And then as you start walking, you know that there is nothing within these 15 feet kind of radius around you that is coming in your direction. So that's a pretty nice way to get an approximation of, is it fully safe to cross? It's not like the longest field that you can imagine, but it's so far like a quick and easy way to know if something's coming in your direction once you're starting to cross the street.
Oh, that's good. So it will detect an obstacle or a destination maximum of 15 feet away.
That's the kind of cap, like how we cap the system for it. The cameras can actually see all the way up to 50 feet, so a lot further.
Right.
But the main thing that is happening inside of the device is it can detect things at 50 feet, but then it will predict that this thing is coming closer to you and will have a risk of collision with you, and then allows you to basically get a feedback for that. So we always distinguish like these two ranges for us. There is the dynamic safety range, which is 50 feet, and that's where like how far, like we max out how far we can look for potential hazards and tell you about them as early in advance as possible. And then there is this static range for all static obstacles that have a risk of collision with you. And it's always a bit harder than for like the initial explanation for such stuff, but I think it makes it quite convincing once you start trying this out to have, obstacles that are coming in your direction that are being picked up by the system quite early on, because sometimes 10 feet or whatever is way too late if you have a bicycle.
Okay, is it 15 feet or 50 feet?
So the system you have, the control you have access to is 15. So that's the range for static obstacles. But the cameras see and we predict trajectories all the way up to 50, so 50 feet.
Okay. So suppose if I'm walking somewhere, I'm looking for a destination like a restaurant or a bank, and if I ask for it, how far is this bank or how far is this restaurant, will it let me know if it's within the 50 feet area?
Yeah, so it's that is a tiny bit different. It's simpler for this because we also have cameras. So everything related to collision avoidance is
Mhm.
kind of set to this distance of how far the cameras can see. But the cameras in practice also see things up to 150 feet. So
Wow.
that's how
Okay.
far, like the cameras, if they need to describe something visually on the AI side, the
Uh-huh.
range practically is 150 feet. Of course, like it won't read text at 150 feet, but if it's about finding like a monument, a statue, a building, or things like these, it can describe it at 150 feet. And very often, if you know, like there is a restaurant across the street, then you
Uh-huh.
trigger like the text reading, for example, and then it would tell you there is a restaurant across the street and read out the name of the restaurant.
Oh, wonderful. That's great. Thank you. Thank you. All right.
Yeah,
That's a good
thank you.
thing.
Thanks,
Thank you
Farhang.
very much.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Farhang.
Ryan.
Marcia, I see that you have your hand raised.
I think, Marcia, we're not getting any luck hearing you.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Marcia. It just still doesn't seem like we're able to connect to the audio. Morgan, go ahead.
Hi. So I just had two more questions. The first is, I know you'd mentioned that you're in the future hoping to get it where, you know, you use like say the GPS app on your phone or have the audio come through the phone. So there's no speakers on this device then, right? Everything's through the headset or eventually the phone.
Yes, I mean, we do have a speaker, but just on a prototype version in our office. We experimented with it. Very happy to like continue this as a side discussion. But we did the hardware investment to actually like get this to work. It's just about like finding the good level of privacy you want to have, because the
Oh, hello?
We're still here.
Yeah.
Maël, you broke up just a little bit. Can you repeat just that last sentence you said?
Yep, sorry.
Okay.
The I think the main aspect was it was super hard for us to find like the right set of speakers to use, not to spread the sounds like too far away from the user. Otherwise, like it might be the same thing as walking with a speaker in the street.
Yeah, and then and of course then everybody's gonna hear that you have this
Yeah,
talking
like
device.
finding the balance is I mean, it's all about the balance for this stuff, but it's quite tricky. Of course, like the louder, like the more people are gonna hear it, of course, around.
Of course. Thank you. My second question is, you kind of answered this, but I just wanted to clarify. So, you'd mentioned that it can identify bus stops. That's great. There are, on one side of my street, there's a couple bus stops I have to pass before I get to mine. So it'll identify the stop, like it'll tell me there's a bus stop, but can I get it to tell me what stop?
Yes, good point. I think what you're looking at solving basically is pretty much going to be covered with our September update. So we are working on something called video description. The goal with video description is that instead of having just like upon request pieces of information that describe what the visual information is like around you. So for example, I could get information that I'm passing by bus stop number 1 and then 2 and then 3 and then 4. On the, this means that first I know where the bus stop potentially is, and I know that I've just passed by, like the first one, second one, and third one. And second, I need to stop every time to then, ask the system to describe what's around. And I think with that video description aspect, the experience we're envisioning is something where as you walk, you continuously get a small voice that talks to you and basically tells you bus stop 62 left, bus stop 68 left, bus stop 82 left.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that is just going to be our video description system, and it's going to be like a very nice shift in paradigm in that sense, because it's I think video description is great upon request for places that like, I mean, if you don't want video description, I think it's like if you're in a place that or if you're in an area that doesn't change dynamically too much, it doesn't really matter to have video description, because it might just be an overkill of like kind of a spatial understanding that you already have. But if you're traveling or commuting every day and like in a specific area, things change quite heavily.
Yeah.
Then I think that mode would be super cool. And so that one would be triggered by, it's basically on the AI side. Whenever like you can scroll through the classes of object, there is a second button next to it that we designated for that. And you double click on that one and it would tell you video description enabled. And then
Okay.
the AI system then starts talking to you as soon as it notices something that significantly changes in the frame. And starts to like kind of speak that out loud.
Great, great. So in its current state, you couldn't go to like say bus stop 1, do the scene description, and then it would tell you like, oh, this is, bus stop 68, 69. I know it's a more tedious way, but I'm just curious right now.
Yes,
if
yeah, that's how you'd go around. So you can do that. It's by no means optimal in that sense, but it's definitely something that is feasible. So you just like get like I mean, you can have like specific GPS landmarks that you can define. So you could also like just have the GPS tell you like landmark 1 bus stop, and then you trigger this in description and it tells you bus stop number X, and then you get to the next one, and then the GPS tells you bus stop number landmark number 2, and then you trigger this in description and it tells you that the bus number is whichever.
Got it.
So that's
Got it.
something that is feasible, but it's just like it's a bit manual and it's a bit
It
tedious.
is more tedious, yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Morgan. I see Perla, you have your hand raised. Go ahead.
Hi, it sounds amazing. How about elevators? Like in a bank of elevators, and you never know which one is going to open when it dings. And is there any?
Yeah.
Is that worked into your system?
Yeah, great question. So we do have an elevator description feature. So when you go on the side, it would describe, so same way it does like doors and exits and crosswalks. We have one that is a generic like stairs, elevators, escalators. And for example, with the escalators, like the cool thing is it would describe if some of the escalators are like going up or down based on the image, like the way people are, for example, facing you, or like, you're seeing their back or whatever. And for the elevators, it works pretty well. We haven't, so you just have to bear in mind the kind of the latency of the system somehow. So it might take like 3, 4, 5 seconds to get back to you and run the description. So I don't think it would have like the dynamic aspect of, just dynamically understanding the one that just opened. But I think this video description mode could be super useful also for that case. So, because the video description mode just focuses on highlighting things that have changed over time. So it could tell you door slightly to your right has just opened, something like this. And but by default, when you trigger it, you get in a public building and you're looking for an elevator. That's what it's been designed for right now. And you scroll through the menu, elevator, you click select, and then it tells you looking for the AI assistant would tell you, I'm looking for an elevator. There is an elevator slightly to your right at about 2 o'clock, 12 feet away. And that's the kind of description that you would get.
Okay, well, you just made me think of another question. Okay, scrolling through the menu. Do you have any plans eventually that you could voice activate those commands?
Yes, great input. Yes, we do have everything ready for this. And it's really for us like kind of the next step where it's going to look like a bit a guide dog experience somehow. Same way you would tell a guide dog to look for stairs, having a voice enabled experience where you just tell it basically, find stairs, find crosswalks, etc., is really where we want to take this on the interaction. It's adding one more layer. I think sometimes the buttons will make more sense. sometimes the speech will make more sense, sometimes using the app because you have to change something a bit deeper. I think it's purely about like giving the choice, and speech is a great way to communicate this, and very similar to the experience of using a guide dog. So it's also great anchor point somehow.
Mhm. Great, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Does anyone else have any other questions? Currently, I don't see any other hands raised. No other hands raised, Bob, at this time.
Okay, well, great. Well, this has been very fascinating. It's been great to understand how the biped works, and you did an excellent presentation. We appreciate you coming on. Check it out with Vista. And if nobody else has any other questions, we can go ahead and sign off. But Maël, thank you again. We really, really appreciate you being here.
Yeah, thank you so much, and thanks again for having me. I think it was a really really interesting chat, and lots of awesome questions. So I was really excited to come here, and was not disappointed at all with the experience. Thank you again.
Sure, thank you.